Hi, I'm Catherine.
And I'm Sheila.
And we're taking you through Private Eyes.
Before we start this episode, I want to make 2 corrections from the last episode. I'll go back in and edit it, but I want to make sure that everyone knows it has been corrected. I made 2 mistakes, and I always want to make sure people understand when you make mistakes, it's not the mistakes, it's how you handle it when you realize you've made a mistake. My philosophy is fix it. So I'm fixing it here. When Catherine and I were talking about blood spatter, I did not refer to it as blood transfer. It is actually blood transfer. And that's how we could tell the pattern based on the blood transfer. The second thing, when I said manner of death, it's actually cause of death. The cause of death refers to how the person died, such as gunshot wound. I referred to it as manner of death. Manner of death includes suicide, homicide, accidental, or natural. My mistake, Catherine and I worked 12 hours and had the last little bit to upload, edit, and get out in a day. Again, it's not the mistake, it's how you handle the mistake. So those are the corrections. It is important to note that the reason that this podcast does a deep dive into cases is in order to open up discussion for public interest. So next time when someone investigates and they don't find a bullet, things will change for the victim.
This season, we are featuring the case of Danny Smith and getting a deeper look into the investigation that was done by the Cass County Sheriff's Department. This week, we are diving further into an interview conducted by Chief Deputy Roy Barker, interviewing witness CJ Crompton. Based on tips we have received since the podcast has begun, we wanted to examine the statements made to law enforcement. While you have heard this interview on an earlier episode, the purpose of the podcast is to take the audience through an investigation as it happens in real time. We go back and examine those statements even more with the new information we have received.
Okay, my name's Roy Barker. I'm Chief Deputy Cass County Sheriff's Office. It's 10:01, July 21st, 2014. And your name is Charles Joseph Crompton. Crompton, Crompton. Correct. They call you CJ. Yep. You live at Hughes Springs. Telephone number is correct. Okay. You're going to give me a statement today. Now, this is what we call a non-custodial interview. Anytime that you want to get up and walk out, all you are is a witness. Okay. And I just basically want you to tell me your story about what happened, basically about this ride that took place. All right, go ahead and tell me what happened.
You want to start from the very beginning, from going to the bear school?
Right.
All right. We all decided we was going to go riding. I loaded up and went off from Bear.
That was Saturday afternoon.
Right.
About what time?
I guess that would be 3:30, 4 o'clock, somewhere around in there. And then went to the beer store. Jeff Welburn sent me a message on Facebook, asked me when the next time we was going to go riding or mudding or whatever. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, going this evening. And he said, well, I'm on my way. So I come back into Hughes Springs to buy ice at Miracle Mart. I see Jeff over there getting gas and everything. So I'm talking to him on the phone, actually, and I hang up on him. I went over there, talked for a minute, and he said, well, I'm headed out there now. I said, well, I'm headed there too.
Okay. At this point, did you see Danielle Smith? Smith.
I did not see her at the time.
Do they call her Danielle? Is that what they call her?
I think they call her Danny.
Danny. Okay. So at this point, you didn't see Danny in the truck?
No, I did not see her in the truck.
All right, go ahead.
So I get back in my truck, ride out there to Jamie's, and
We're talking about Jamie Cooks.
Right.
Okay.
Dalton's in there working on his Can-Am, putting a clutch on it.
And that's Dalton.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're all getting ready to go ride. He gets his fixed. They put some air and tires on the other side by sides that Jamie got. We all load up.
Okay, so we're talking about you loaded up with Jamie, Eddie, and you're in the front.
Right. Like Jamie was driving, I was passenger seat, and it was in the back.
And there was another couple there named William and Monica. And then Dalton was riding.
Right.
Then a Dustin, and he had a girlfriend. You don't know her, she's from South Texas.
Right.
Okay. And then Jeff and Danny.
Right.
Were in their vehicle. Okay, all right, go ahead and tell me.
All right, so we take off, we head back in towards Hugh Springs, cut down to the power line.
Okay, about what time is this, you think?
I'm going to say this has got to be around 6:30.
And y'all are just riding along, everybody's kind of got their own beer and stuff, and they're just drinking along. Okay.
Yeah. You know, everybody's trying to figure out who's going to lead the way and everything.
Okay.
So we ride out there. We end up in Coronet. Jamie told me, call Murphy to find out where he's at. The phone's screwed up. So I called James and Vanessa, and they said, we're on our way. So we sat there at the bridge.
Now you're talking about the concrete bridge at Coronet.
Right.
And now all of y'all are sitting there at the same time?
Yeah.
And y'all are waiting on who?
James and Vanessa.
Okay. And at that time, y'all are drinking?
Yes.
And y'all are drinking jello shots? Who's doing that?
Jeff and Danielle or Daniel or whatever, they're the ones that had the jello shots.
They were drinking the jello shots.
And they were handing them. I was drinking some of them or eating them or however you call a jello shot.
And they're made out of jello and whiskey, and they're just
jello and some kind of liquor. I think maybe Malibu rum or something.
Okay. What is it? Is it like jello?
Just like jello.
And you just eat them or drink them or whatever you do?
Yeah, they come. You know those little cups you get at the store about that big around plastic.
Okay.
You just scoop them out of there and eat them.
Okay. All right. Okay. So at that time, is Danny on the way to getting intoxicated?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe we all were.
Okay. All right. So now y'all are at the bridge and you're waiting for James and Vanessa, Chris, and his wife. What's her name?
Natalie. Right.
Okay. Then y'all go to Billy's house?
Yeah, they show up, and we head over to Billy's house. He's usually over there throwing horseshoes and all that, so we ride over there.
Okay.
And we was there, I think we was there maybe an hour or two. That's when we started heading back to Jamie's house.
Okay, and that was probably about what time you think?
I would have to say that would had to been probably 10:30.
10:30. Okay,
Yeah.
so y'all head back, and then do y'all come back the same route as Danny and Jeff?
No, they ended up coming back in from the opposite way we come. We come back roads, and we come, where Crossroads Church?
Right.
We come back that way.
Okay, was it just Jeff and Danny, or was anybody else?
I think it was just them two. Went
Okay.
that way.
So they came back that way, and when y'all were together, was just everybody talking to everybody?
Yeah, I mean, everybody was, you always split off little groups. You talk to this one, then you go over there. But I mean, everybody's in, around. And
Was Jeff talking to anybody in particular?
well, when we went to Billy's house, he talked to Natalie and he talked to some other girl, and they were just general conversation because they've been friends all their life.
Natalie and the other girl.
No, I can't remember. It might have been Monica he was talking to.
Okay.
Pretty sure it was Monica.
Monica and Natalie he was talking about.
Yeah.
You know where Danny was at that time? Was she by herself?
She might have been over there by herself.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not real sure. I meander around. And
Okay. When you got back, when y'all got back. Now, you were with Jamie Cook.
Right.
And when y'all got back, did y'all sit around and talk, or did Jamie go in and take?
I think we sat there for a minute and talked, and then he always burns out on us. So he
going to bed?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened to William and Monica?
We sat out there and talked for a little bit.
What about Dalton?
Dalton, I think he stayed there for just a few minutes or a little longer talking, and him and Dustin and his girlfriend went back up to his house. He lives 2 houses down.
So they left. And then Jamie left. And so then that left you, William and Monica talking, and Jeff and Dan pulled up.
Yeah, I'm thinking I was pretty drunk at the time, so I'm cloudy on that.
Okay. But you remember them pulling up?
Vaguely.
Okay. You don't remember much? You don't remember them loading?
No, I really don't.
Anything? Now, the next thing that you know is Jeff calls you at about what time?
What was it, 12:40 or 12:20 or something like that?
12:40, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so he calls you and he says, and I think I'm going to quote you here, says, "Oh, fuck, she shot herself, she killed herself," and then you told me she was more or less in a freak out mode. He was in a freak out mode?
Well, yeah, I mean, when he first started talking, it was calmness, hey dude, got my stuff on here, I ain't got it strapped down real good. And then, oh fuck, she shot herself, she killed herself, dude.
It's almost like he didn't know.
Right.
At first, he started off the conversation. He had his Can-Am strapped down. Everything.
Well, he didn't strap it down good, and then he come off with that, oh fuck, she shot herself, she killed herself. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, she killed herself, she shot herself. I was like, why? What happened? He said, I got to call 911.
Okay.
Hung up the phone.
Okay. Then you had pulled out in front of him, right?
Right.
You were easing home.
Yeah.
And then you kind of pulled over and he flew by.
Right.
Going fast.
He was getting it.
He's getting it. And that trailer was just going back and forth. And you figured.
Yeah, that trailer was flopping and whipping and everything.
Okay. So you kind of got in behind him, and up the road was his Can-Am on the side of the road.
Yeah, he run off and left me, and got up there almost Hugh Springs, and his Can-Am was laying there on its side, so I stopped right there.
Okay. Now, did you try to contact him again?
Yeah, I believe I probably tried to call him again, and I can't remember. I believe it was before that while I was still trying to follow him. And I talked to him again after I talked to him that initial time, and I asked him, I said, what happened? He said, man, I don't know. I was like, well, I tried to talk to him for a minute. He said, I got to call my dad. And got off the phone again. And then I did try to call him another time or 2 or 3, to see what was going on, but never talked to him again.
And now, after that night, have y'all talked again since then?
Yes.
And what did he relate to you when he talked to you, maybe the next day? Or
talked to him the next day. You had contacted me, and you were wanting to get a hold of his dad so the family could go get a truck.
Right.
And so I gave a shot in the dark, called him. He called me back, and we talked, and he said, yeah, they're supposed to come get the truck. And then I think he called me back or texted me back, I can't remember, and told me that the truck was gone.
Okay.
They would come got it.
Has he been upset?
Yeah. he don't know how to, how you try to figure something out, he's trying to figure out why she would do it, the way it sounds to me.
Okay. And he did tell you at one time that she had made the statement that when she go out with the girls and stuff, the girls would talk to the guys and
all the girls. He was telling me that she. I guess they have kind of open-ended relationship. She sees guys or goes out, and he sees other girls or whatever. I don't know if she sees guys, but her and her bunch of her friends got together and went to a club somewhere or something, and she was telling him, they were talking that guys always want to talk to their friends and never really pay no attention to her. And
she maybe self-esteem.
And that's just what I read into personally.
Okay.
So it may not be the case. But.
So that night, when he was over there talking to the women and stuff, you think she was over there by herself?
Yeah, and he told me the next day, he said she got pissed off about it. And,
he's over there talking to those other girls?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is just, have you ever seen them together before?
No, that's the first time I've ever seen them together.
Okay. Do you know her very well?
The only way I've known her, I've seen her at the parts store in New Springs.
Okay. Do you know him very well?
Know him pretty good.
Pretty good. Is he a violent person?
I've never known him to be a violent person.
Okay. Is he pretty easy going?
Real easy going. Laid back, just, I've never seen him confrontational. Now, he is a veteran of Iraq and whatever, but I've never seen no aggression come out of him.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that I've not said or not asked you about that you think you need to tell me? Is there anything that you know that you think I need to know?
No.
Okay.
If I can think of anything else, I will sure come back and.
Okay. Well, I sure appreciate you, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
All right. That's it. I think, let's see, it's looks like 10:16. I appreciate you very much.
Well, if there's anything I can do to help, I feel bad for the family.
The reason we are calling this week's episode Who's Telling the Story is because throughout CJ's interview with Chief Roy Barker, Barker is reading off of a piece of paper. He doesn't ask CJ questions, but seemingly reads off bullet points and is telling someone else's narrative back to CJ. The questions are few, but the answers given to CJ to verify are plenty.
Wait, can I start off by saying that let me just give Roy Barker some credit because it starts off really good when he says, tell me your story. But then he proceeds to feed CJ the information that he's hoping to obtain in what we think is an interview. And it just kind of sounds like there's no new information that's acquired throughout this entire interview. And I put that in quotes. I use the word loosely. We have to assume that obviously Roy Barker has obtained information through another source aside from CJ.
Because we don't have anything in CJ's own words. He didn't even write his statement out to Rachel.
Roy Barker walks into this interview and he's saying things like he's telling CJ it seems like he's asking, but he's telling CJ who was there. He already knows the information through another source. And then he's telling CJ and CJ's just there to verify it. Basically confirm the information. He tells him that and feeds him information throughout the entire interview.
So we take off, we head back in toward Shoe Springs, cut down to the power line.
CJ is very clear on the timing and details of most of the ATV ride. He repeats the route that they took, who he was riding with, the roads they took back to Jamie's, and who he conversed with after the ride. But then he seems cloudy on that and vague, and those are his own words, when Barker asks him if he saw Jeff and Danny return.
Very detailed.
But then he neglects to remember other things later. And just as an overview, does anyone feel like they understood what happened that night based on what CJ says in this interview?
No.
There's so many holes. There's so many detail. There's no detail at all whatsoever. Again, it's like Roy Barker is just asking a question for verification purposes. CJ gets to say yes or no, and then it moves on to the next topic.
What time is this, you think?
I'm going to say this has got to be around 6:30.
And y'all are just riding along. Everybody's kind of got their own beer.
Roy Barker talks about them riding along. They've got their beer. Let him tell what they were doing. Riding along, they have their beer. It needs to come out of the witness. And the reason we're hammering this so hard is because the idea of a witness is to gather as much information as you can.
That's why they call it an interview, not verify the bullet points that I have on this piece of paper.
Okay. And at that time, y'all are drinking.
Yes.
And y'all are drinking jello shots? Who's doing that?
Jeff and Danielle or Danielle, whatever, they're the ones that had the jello shots.
They were drinking the jello shots.
And they were handing them. I was drinking some of them or eating them or however you call a jello shot.
And they're made out of jello and whiskey, and they're just...
Jello and some kind of liquor, I think, maybe Malibu rum or something.
Okay, what is it? Is it like jello?
Just like jello.
And you just eat them or drink them or whatever you do?
Yeah, they come, those little cups you get at the store about that big around plastic.
Okay.
You just scoop them out of there and eat them.
Okay. All right. Okay. So
let's talk about the jello shots. I have a visual of the jello shots because they describe the jello shots so well. Roy Barker asked more questions about the jello shots than any other thing in this entire interview.
Any other thing in this entire case, in any of the interviews from Sartain to Valerie to Kaysen to Barker, there's no investigative info or questions on, well, where's the blood or where's the GSR results? But damn, we sure know how to make a jello shot.
I think he couldn't wait to turn off the recorder so we could ask for the recipe.
I think he got the recipe. Malibu.
I mean, come on. He's more about being Martha Stewart here.
Again, they're not asking where a bullet hole is. They're not asking where blood spatter is. They're asking how to make a jello shot. Think about that. We know more about jello shots in this case than we do about the bullet.
And they were handing them. I was drinking some of them or eating them or however you call a jello shot.
and they're made out of jello and whiskey, and they're just...
Jello and some kind of liquor, I think, maybe Malibu rum.
Malibu rum.
Okay. What is it? Is it like jello?
And just like jello.
Danny on the way to getting intoxicated.
Okay. The Danny getting on the way to being intoxicated. Why did that question come in that form? I mean, even CJ said, well, we all were.
Well, and what's interesting to me about that is that you can tell that Roy's already formed an opinion. He's already created the narrative and he's, again, just verifying the information. Why would you assume that she was on her way to getting wasted? Because you don't even know that yet. You haven't spoken to everyone yet. You've heard that through someone else's documentation, maybe through Jeff, from the only person that was alive at the scene. But you don't know. And it sounds like you've already created the opinion about it.
The opinion about it, Kaysen was so concerned about asking Jeff, how many drinks did Danny have? How often does she drink? Now we have Barker asking CJ about drinking. It's like you have a license then to shoot yourself if you're drunk, yet they don't care about people on the road driving if they're drunk. They want to establish Danny was drinking so much, but what about CJ? What about Jeff? What about everybody else that was there?
Well, and that brings me to the next problem that I have where CJ says that he doesn't remember Jeff and Danny showing up because he was really, really drunk. But then a few minutes later, Jeff is calling him to follow him into town, and he is somehow coherent enough to get in the car and drive and follow the truck.
He gave detailed information about their relationship that night. I don't know if there's amnesia between that night and this interview. So Roy Barker touches on Jeff talking to other women, and we've covered that in the last episode. We're not going to say anymore. We show over and over the text messages where Danny's not the jealous one.
Well, and we have witnesses that were on the ride that night that have come forward and have said that Danny was not in a state that night, that she was friendly, she was outgoing, she was normally who she was.
Where did that narrative come from? Remember, there are a couple of things. Do we know if the blood tox came back from the hospital where he can say Danny was intoxicated? Whether she was or wasn't, did he have that information? And number two, where are the documents of him talking to the people at the scene? At the time of CJ's interview, Roy had not reached out to the people that were on the ride.
Danny was at that time. Was she by herself?
When Roy Barker asked, was Danny by herself? Catherine, don't you look for leading questions like that with your interviews on your cases?
Every single question that he asks is leading, except when he starts in the very beginning by saying, tell me your story.
We have a narrative. She's upset. But who gave him that narrative?
And Jeff and Danny pulled up?
Yeah, I'm thinking I was pretty drunk at the time, so I'm cloudy on that.
Okay.
Roy Barker asks CJ, do you remember Jeff and Danny pulling up? He says vaguely. 2 seconds ago, he gave detailed information about the route that they took. And now it's vague. You can't remember them pulling up?
Or he says, I'm cloudy on that.
Yeah. And then again, a few minutes later, he gets in the truck.
Okay. You don't remember much. You don't remember them loading.
And Roy Barker is saying, you don't remember. Again, seed planted. Oh, no, I don't remember. That's what I'd say if I were the witness, because he's telling me I don't remember.
No, I really don't.
Anything. Now, the next thing that you know is Jeff calls you at about what time? What was it, 12:40?
You can't remember them pulling up, loading the truck, but you can remember the time that Jeff called you.
And my favorite thing is that Roy Barker is telling CJ the next thing he remembers. That's mind-blowing.
12:20 or something like that.
12:40, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so he calls you and he says, and I think I'm going to quote here, says, old folks, she shot herself, she killed herself, and then you told me she was more or less in a freak out mode. He was in a freak out mode.
Well, I mean, when he first started talking, it was calmness, hey dude, got my stuff on here, I ain't got it strapped down real good. And then, oh fuck, she shot herself, she killed herself, baby.
When he first started talking, I would have said, what were his exact words? What did he tell you? What was he talking about?
It's almost like he didn't know.
Right. But
You were easing home.
Yeah.
And then you kind of pulled up.
Was he easing home or was he following Jeff?
Well, we won't know because he didn't ask.
But in an earlier interview with CJ, with the other police officer, he was saying he was following Jeff. He wasn't easing home.
No, but that's the thing. Roy Barker wouldn't know because he's telling him you were easing home. And CJ isn't getting pressed on anything. There's so much opportunity. I think because Roy Barker is telling CJ, and it doesn't even sound like he's interested in the information. It's just like a checks and balances system. There's so much opportunity if you really dig deep and get into the minutia of what happened that night. You're going to start to flush out some of the inconsistencies. And CJ is not getting pressed on any detail. Therefore, no new information is being obtained and none of the inconsistencies are getting exploited.
And here's Roy Barker sitting across from CJ interviewing him when he could have just asked, well, let's open up your phone and let's see. Was it a text? Was it a call? What did the text say? How long was the call? He doesn't even ask him for his phone.
Yeah, at the very least, you want to hammer down the timeline of things. There's no way that anyone at this stage in the investigation has any idea what happened. So it's like, at the very least, you have the opportunity in that moment, like Danielle said, to ask for some of these phone records so that you can at least start putting a timeline together to better understand what happened. There's no interest in this at all whatsoever. No one asks CJ either, that we have evidence of, what did you say to Jeff when he said she shot herself, she killed herself? You're just on the phone holding the line and he says it, over and over and over, and you have no real response?
Going fast. So you kind of got in behind him, or almost few springs.
And when CJ's talking about the ATV, he again regains his memory.
So I stopped right there.
Okay. Now, did you try to contact him again?
Yeah, I believe I probably tried to call him again. And I can't remember. I believe it was before that while I was still trying to follow him. And I talked to him again after I talked to him that initial time. And I asked him, I said, what happened? He said, man, I don't know. I was like, well, I tried to talk to him for a minute. He said, I got to call my dad. Got off the phone again. And then I did try to call him another time or two or three, to see what was going on, but never talked to him again.
And now, after that night, have y'all talked again since then?
Yes.
And what did he relate to you when he talked to you, maybe the next day? Or
talked to him the next day. You had contacted me. And you were wanting to get a hold of his dad, so the family could go get a truck.
Right.
And so I gave him a shot. My daughter called him. He called me back. And we talked, and he said, yeah, they're supposed to come get the truck. And then I think he called me back or texted me back. I can't remember. And told me that.
You can't remember if you had a phone call or a text message with Jeff after that.
Has he been upset?
Yeah. He don't try to figure, he's trying to figure out why she would do it the way it sounds to me.
Okay. He did tell you at one time that she had made the statement that when she go out with the girls and stuff, the girls would talk to the guys. And
what purpose is this interview? You're right, Catherine. It's just to check a box. Roy Barker sums it up saying that night when Jeff is talking to these women who have daughters Danny's age, Danny's going to go off the rails, pick up a gun, and shoot herself because she's so jealous.
Even though she's texting another guy while she's on the ATV ride with Jeff. She's texting another guy.
She had a date coming up and plans.
Do you know him very well?
Know him pretty good.
Pretty good. Is he a violent person?
I've never known him to be a violent person.
Okay. Is he pretty easygoing?
Real easygoing. Laid back, just, I've never seen him confrontational.
CJ's not describing Jeff Roy Barker's giving him 2 adjectives to agree with, and that's it. Non-violent and easygoing. What does that even tell you about a person? What information are you gleaning from someone saying yes or no to that? What is the purpose of that at all?
I've never seen them confrontational.
On a future episode, we are going to dive into Danny's phone records, her call log, and her text messages. We are also going to talk about her relationships with past boyfriends, with Jeff, and with anyone else she may have been dating.